Helicopters are one of the best vehicles in Battlefield 2042. And with this video, we're gonna make you a better pilot. First of all, we're gonna cover the 3 main helicopters, the best loadouts, advantages and disadvantages. Then I'll give you some tips and tricks. We talk about general awareness, or in other words, how do you stay alive with a helicopter. And there will be a beginner section. We're gonna talk about the auto hover setting and why you should turn it off. And then we'll make our way from basic movement to some drills that get you better and why you probably suck using miniguns. Okay, and with the intro out of the way, I wanted to thank you guys for all the support lately. We just hit our 250 sub goal and you guys already made it a thing of the past. If you need squad mates, join our Discord, and now let's talk helicopters. The attack heli is the slowest and heaviest of the bunch. Using anti-vehicle rockets and heat seekers is the way to go for this helicopter. The only way to make this thing shine is the gunner seat anyways. The anti-vehicle rockets do more damage against vehicles and infantry, but your best bet is fly up high and let your gunner do the work. Because the second that you're close to anything that can hit you really, you're done for. This flying brick with gunner seats doesn't really do well on dodging. And even when it comes to air-to-air combat, it stands no chance against any of the other helicopters. So if you want to level up this thing, fly high and use gunner seat. I'm serious, that's your best bet for it. But you're better off focusing the stealth heli anyway. For the stealth heli, use 30mm, either wire-guided missiles or heat seekers. Its gunner seat does not have any splash damage, but it does have higher precision and an EMP grenade. And if you combine that with its stealth mode, which essentially lets you carpet bomb enemies while being invisible for their Lockons, you already get yourself a better helicopter than the attack heli. But then of course you got Lockons or your wire-guided missile as well. And once you get used to that thing, you do now have the ability to one-shot air vehicles. So having bombs, being invisible for Lockons, doing decent damage, ideally having a high precision gunner who can easily snipe out other pilots, and of course more maneuverability than the flying brick, make this already a way better option. And that being said, there's only one helicopter left, the Nightbird. If you are a beginner, use the rocket pods and the 20mm. And if you know what you're doing, use air-to-ground missiles and miniguns. Not only is this annoying little mosquito the quickest out of all of them, which of course keeps you alive the longest, but due to its passenger seats, it also grants you with the highest firepower out of all helicopters. Miniguns are hard to hit with at first, but they do not overheat as quickly as the 20mm does, and once you do the drills at the end, you'll be fine with them anyways. But let's recap the most important part about this helicopter. Your 2 passenger seats. If you can get 2 people playing this, you all of a sudden have the most health out of all the helicopters because of repairs, and an infinite amount of TV missiles on both sides. And that combined with the air-to-ground missiles is a combo that no vehicle survives. I mean, you can make all helicopters work, but once you got good aiming with the miniguns as well, there's no real point in using less maneuverability. Because with the Nightbird you got the highest firepower, best survivability, you can even be a taxi, man. But once you wrap your head around on how to engage and disengage in combat, the Nightbird is the way to go for helicopter players. Okay, with the 3 main choppers and their loadouts out of the way, let's talk awareness. Or in other words, what you need to focus to stay alive longer. Your biggest threat has to be another helicopter pilot, because he might have a decent gunner or can easily take you down. And your next biggest threat has to be a gunship. If you forget about them and they sneak up on you, a full gunship crew can get you pretty easily. So sneak up on them or hide, it's up to you, but see them first. Okay, your next biggest threat are anti-air vehicles of all kinds. Whether it be a Wildcat with its devastating machine guns or an LATV with the new flak pods added in Season 5. I mean, with the right crew they are no threat at all, but it's up to you as a pilot to decide when or where to attack them, or if it's better to hide for a second and wait for the perfect opportunity. Okay, after getting rid of everything that can kill you once you're unaware, you now do have 2 minutes to farm infantry. And now your biggest goal should be find those beautiful choke points and make the most out of these 2 minutes without enemy vehicles. The only thing the enemy can do now is either get farmed by you or pull out their first Lockons. I mean, you as a pilot get some countermeasures and they work great and all, but the far more important thing than actually using countermeasures is knowing where your next cover will be. As you can see here, I'm out of flares, but I already knew where I wanted to go. And so our rocket is easily dodged. And after a successful dodge, you got your flares back by this sound. And once you heard that sound, you're all good to go to start it all over again. Okay, but with doing good in choppers, there inevitably comes the time where you pissed off the enemy team so much that they bring out the railgun tank. And this, my fellow pilot, is inevitable death. Not because you suck or anything, it's just once a pissed railgun tank driver wants to get your air vehicle, he literally lasers you out of the sky. And now, my fellow pilot friend, comes your biggest duty as a pilot. The second you see a railgun tank, get McKay, get some C5, get some EMP if you need it, and get your sweet, sweet revenge.
Dip, potato chip, dip, dip, potato chip, dip, dip, potato chip, dip, dip, potato chip.
We're now at the point where we can start talking about how do we get you started flying helicopters. As you've seen by now or already know, helicopters can change the outcome of a game. So where do we start? Where should you start? I'd say the thing that probably changed helicopter gameplay in this game the most for me was turning off the helicopter control assist. Go to settings, controller or mouse or keyboard, click on vehicles, find the helicopter control assist and turn it off. Because once you turn that off, your helicopter does stay where you aim it at. As you can see, if I pitch my nose down to aim at something at the ground, the helicopter actually stays like that until I level it out myself. And now just watch what happens if we turn this shit back on again. Okay, with the helicopter control assist back on, the second you start aiming down, your helicopter tries to level out itself. Meaning if you want to look down, it always tries to fight you. And there's plenty of situations where you just need to look down without your helicopter fighting you for your aiming. Okay, and with that out of the way, let's talk about aiming. If you haven't got any Lissile players in your chopper that can deal with all the vehicles around you, you probably need to hit your shots yourself.
Well, duh.
For that, of course, you need decent aiming. And to achieve that, I'd say we start out with the basic controls, and then we'll work our way up to the sweet spot of the miniguns and stuff like that. Okay, your left hand, either on controller or PC, controls your rotors, meaning vertical movement gives you speed for the main rotor, which essentially is up and down, and horizontal movement controls the rotor in the back, meaning if you pull your left stick left or right, you will do the according movement. Your helicopter does want to fly, so if you do nothing, you just hover in the air. Okay, now let's talk about your right hand. Horizontal movement controls your nose, meaning pulling your nose down or up. Even if you give it no throttle at all, this will get you moving. Do this a little bit and try to catch your helicopter, meaning you can hover normally again. Then of course there's vertical movement, which controls your rolls. Same thing here, play around with it a little and try to catch your helicopter again. All this is doing is familiarizing yourself with the movement your helicopter can do. Because then doing fine adjustments to keep your crosshair on an enemy, for example, while still being on the move, is essentially just a combination out of these basic movements. And starting out doing all at once might be a little bit overwhelming, so I'd say you start out with throttle and pitch first. Find yourself a flat surface and try to fly forwards and backwards without losing or gaining too much altitude. This might be boring at first, and if that's so, that's really good. This gives you instant feedback over if you're losing or gaining height. If you lose too much, you're gonna crash into the building, and if you do this in a tunnel, you're not allowed to gain much altitude neither. Okay, once you got your pitch down, do the same thing with rolls. This essentially teaches you evasive maneuvers the easiest way. And while going left or right, just make sure to not gain or lose too much altitude neither. And if you get that down, you're ready for the circle of death, which essentially is rolling your helicopter to one side while having your nose pitched down, but at the same time counter-steering with your back rotor. So you do end up with your nose always pointing at the enemy while still moving at all times. Or in other words, you get to shoot people while being a way harder target to hit yourself. Okay, don't get me wrong on this one. I'm not saying you should fly in circles all the time, but the circle of death drill teaches you, I'd say, 90% of the exact movement that you need to do in order to be moving while shooting enemies. Okay, with that being said, let's talk miniguns. Unlike Battlefield 4, where they used to be perfectly aligned with your crosshair, each minigun does have its own trajectory. As you can see here, if you are too close to an enemy, rely purely on your crosshair, you probably miss them on both sides. To fix that problem, you can either roll a little bit so you can align the miniguns, or you get a feeling of staying away 140 meters, because that's the minigun sweet spot. At 140 meters, your shots do completely align with the crosshair, and just knowing that completely doubles your damage with the miniguns. And if you still struggle, unlock the 20 mils and enjoy having some splash damage. Having splash damage does make things way easier to start out, meaning you don't have to be as precise to hit stuff. Same thing with the rocket pods. Because of their splash damage, it's way easier to get your first few kills. And that, my friend, is what's called the noob loadout on helicopters. But even though aiming or hitting your shots is way easier this way, it does come with a massive downside. 20mm cannon just overheats so quickly. Even if your shots are on point, you're not getting as much kills as with the miniguns. But there is an upside as well. The 20mm cannon does do damage against armored vehicles. I mean, it's nothing an air-to-ground missile can't do, but they are certainly the way to go to start out. Because if you still struggle to hit your shots with the miniguns, you will be way better off using splash damage on the 20mm. Okay, but once you can keep your helicopter up and are getting confident at killing some bots, try your first rounds in normal conquest. Use some AGMs for armored vehicles, try to combine all the dodging, all the rolling, enter a circle of death as long as you need to, as long as you want to, get those awesome feeling minigun kills, and just try to enjoy the whole experience. Once you do that, you'll 100% get better at flying helicopters. Then there's only one thing left, and that has to be below radar. It does only work sometimes, so that's why I decided to put it in last. But if you fly low enough to the ground, no vehicles can lock onto you. Do with this information whatever you want, man. And yeah, then I'd say that's pretty much it. If you find anything that I forgot, or something you would have mentioned, let me know and we might be able to do an advanced helicopter video as well. But for now, I do hope it gets you started, and if you made it this far, man, thanks for watching. I love you. Fish out.